But first, President Trump signed an executive order Monday directing federal health officials to scale back the number of vaccines universally recommended for children, cutting the list from 18 diseases to 11 and recommending splitting the vaccines for measles, mumps, and rubella into individual shots instead of administering them in combination. The order comes as measles cases have hit their highest level in 35 years and as kids head back to school across the country. Dr. Catherine Troisi is a Houston area infectious disease epidemiologist and a board member of the American Public Health Association. Dr. Troisi, good morning.
Good morning.
Measles, mumps, and rubella are three contagious viruses that cause high fevers, rashes, and painful swelling. They also spread easily through the air when someone infected coughs or sneezes. For decades, vaccines to protect against them have been administered jointly through what's called an MMR shot. Why has it been administered that way all these years?
Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, studies have shown, as you mentioned, that these vaccines are very effective in preventing disease. And so we want to get kids protected. It's easier for parents if they can get the vaccine in one visit to the doctor rather than having to go 3 separate times. And so that's really why we've been doing it.
The president's executive order recommends splitting the MMR shot into separate doses. Does it make sense to do so medically?
Absolutely not, for a couple of reasons. First of all, we're seeing this again. If you remember, I don't know when it was, months ago.
I think it was January.
It was at January. Okay, thank you. That the ACIP, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, was disbanded. The experts who know about these things were taken off the committee, and people without the expertise or with political leanings were appointed. The courts ruled they couldn't do that. So now the administration is trying to have this happen through an executive order. There are a couple problems. As I mentioned, first of all, there's absolutely no reason to do it. It makes it harder for parents because they have to take their child into the doctor more often for these immunizations. And the child is unprotected for a longer period of time. And that's just also in the United States, it would probably be years. We don't have any approved single measles or mumps or rubella vaccines. It's a combined vaccine that has been shown to be safe and effective. So there's no reason to do this. We don't have single vaccines here in the United States that are licensed. It would take probably a couple of years to get them. And this is just increasing the misinformation about how children can be safely protected against these childhood diseases.
For parents with infants who are looking at how to keep their kids safe, does this order change anything in the near term, considering, as you point out, practically speaking, those individual vaccines may not be available for a couple of years?
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out because the president actually, he issued an executive order, and I'm not a lawyer, but from what I've read, he doesn't have the authority to say what vaccines are available and what the schedule should be. So in the short run, it may not affect anything for parents who want to protect their children. The problem is that it contributes to the misinformation out there. And because we are all in bubbles where we get our information, if you're in a bubble that is spreading this vaccine misinformation, you want to do the best thing for your child. And you may not understand that the information you're hearing in your bubble is not correct. And these vaccines save lives.
Well, let's cut through some of that. The White House fact sheet on this frames the move as bringing the U.S. in line with peer-developed countries. Is that accurate?
No, it is not accurate. And the country that they do compare themselves, that they look at the schedule for, that does have fewer vaccines recommended is Denmark. Denmark is a very different country from the United States. It's smaller. There's more trust in government. And they have a national health system. So it's very easy for parents to get their child vaccinated, or healthcare in general. We don't have that. And, I don't have to talk in theory. We are seeing outbreaks of measles. We had that huge outbreak in the spring. And we're still seeing more cases than we've seen since the recommendation for a second dose of MMR came out in 91. We're seeing other vaccine preventable diseases rise as well, as children aren't protected. So, it is not fair to compare us to other countries. And Denmark was cherry-picked. Other European, other high-income countries do recommend the number of vaccines that we do.
Let's set aside the policy stuff for a minute and kind of talk about, in more practical terms, what's going on here in the Houston area. The CDC says measles cases have hit a 35-year high. There are active outbreaks here in Texas, as well as Utah, South Carolina, Virginia, and Pennsylvania. What is the situation in the Houston area specifically? I mean, we have a new school year just starting up. This is kind of an important thing to know about.
Yeah, we have been seeing cases in Montgomery County. Right now, if we look at wastewater, we're not seeing a lot of measles in it. That's good, but you are correct that with schools starting up, kids are together inside in a classroom, and measles is probably the most infectious virus we know. I know norovirus may be more infectious, but it's right up there. Each person, usually a child, infected with measles can infect 18 other people. So you can see where just one child in a classroom can spread measles to other children who are not protected through vaccination.
Meanwhile, over the summer, we had a multi-state outbreak of Cyclospora, a microscopic parasite. The CDC just traced a new Salmonella outbreak to Mexican jalapenos. What recommendations do you have for families who are navigating these circumstances with kids back to school and outside of parent supervision over what they're eating?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know what's happening in the HISD cafeterias regarding this. I can tell you my recommendations for at home. And even last night, as I was preparing dinner, I was thinking, boy, I miss having salads. Right now, my husband and I are not having raw lettuce or other vegetables cooked yet. And, maybe we're being super cautious, but the thing about Cyclospora is, we have seen 2 deaths, but it very, very, and we're not even sure those deaths were due to Cyclospora. They may have died with Cyclospora, not because of Cyclospora. They had underlying conditions, but it can make you pretty darn miserable. So, I would prefer not to get it. If you're packing a lunch for your child, again, just be careful. Something like you can put in carrot sticks, you peel them, you wash them. That should be safe. The Cyclospora is sticky, and so it's difficult. You really have to wash food. And items like blackberries or raspberries are particularly susceptible to Cyclospora they're not infected, but, having the Cyclospora on them because of those little holes, those facets that they have in them. So, we can't reduce our risk to zero, but you can think about what you're putting in your child's lunch or your lunch.
And wash those fruits and veggies at the very least, right?
Wash them well, yes.
Yeah. Beyond measles, what other infectious diseases typically make the rounds once kids are back in school? If we look at the wastewater findings, we see that there are some viruses right now
that are at high levels. These are viruses that typically cause cold-like symptoms. They can sometimes cause more serious disease like meningitis, but we are seeing those at a high level. And like other cold viruses, we call it a cold, but there are a lot of different viruses that can cause those symptoms. It's spread through the air. So children are not sometimes great at good hygiene and, covering their cough or their sneeze, washing their hands, all those things we should be doing. So they are great at spreading these viruses. So we may see more of an uptick in that. I think more concerning is that we are starting to see, and these are data from the end of July, an uptick in SARS-CoV-2. And we have, the limited number of years we have data for, but we do see an increase in the fall. And again, easily spread by children, particularly in a classroom setting.
Dr. Catherine Troisi is a Houston area infectious disease epidemiologist and a board member of the American Public Health Association. Dr. Troisi, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Up next, there is so much polling out right now. It seems every day there's a new one just about the U.S. Senate race here in Texas. Which are legit? What questions should we ask about any poll results? Guidance ahead as Houston Matters continues on News 88.7 and YouTube.
Hi, I'm Michael Schaefer. My partner Ellen and I have been proud supporters of public radio and TV for decades.
We really would be lost without our daily fix of unbiased national and local news, cultural programming, and great entertainment.
But with recent federal defunding, stations like Houston Public Media face real challenges.
Now's the time to step up.
Give now at houstonpublicmedia.org.
Thank you.
Standard coming up at 10 o'clock. Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Baylor College of Medicine. With over 125 years of innovation behind it, Baylor has driven progress in health and medicine through research, education, and care that push the frontiers of modern science. Support for Houston Public Media comes from Miller Outdoor Theater, presenting Incredible India, Call of the Flute, produced by Indian Performing Arts Samskriti, Friday, August 22nd at 8 p.m. More at milleroutdoortheater.com.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. In these months before the midterm elections, we're hearing a lot about public opinion polling, about which candidates have the edge in which races, about whether registered voters or likely voters favor one party or another controlling Congress. As the Texas Tribune noted late last week, there have been no fewer than 24 public opinion polls conducted on the U.S. Senate race in Texas between James Tallarico and Ken Paxton. But what ultimately do the results of such polling mean? Are pollsters asking the right questions? And what should we as news consumers understand about any poll before accepting its results? These are some of the questions addressed in Anthony Salvanto's book, Where Did You Get This Number? A Pollster's Guide to Making Sense of the World. He's the longtime executive director of elections and surveys for CBS News, and in 2018, he told me, yes, polls do work, but we should all demand answers about how they were conducted before considering what the results mean.
They do work by and large, but you just have to read them the right way. I think one of the things that I try to stress is get beyond that horse race, get beyond that idea that the candidate who's leading by a point or two is always going to win, and see the world and see the people out there as engaged in an argument, engaged in something fluid and dynamic. That's what democracy is. And so look at the range of possibilities, look at what could happen, and demand that your pollster give that to you. Some of that in particular on a technical side starts by us really having to explain, I think, clearly what it is we do when we take a sample. When we take a sample, what we're doing is we're putting together a microcosm of the country. We're taking this 1,000 or 2,000 people, which I know can sound like a small number in fairness, but what we're doing is we're putting together a group of people in the right balance. If it's a national poll, in the right balance of men and women, of young and old, of different races, different regions, and so that there's people in that poll who would represent you, who would answer things the way you would answer. if you were polled. And, I think that if we get that across and we say what we're doing there, then hopefully we can illuminate some of the process and show you all that we can learn about other people. And that's really what I'm trying to do.
Well, let's talk about process. Whenever we're told the results of an opinion poll, what are maybe some questions we should ask about how that poll was conducted?
Well, the first thing everybody should do is, for any given number, they should demand that the pollster say because. So people are voting for candidate X. Why? Make sure your pollster delivers you because they like what he's done on the economy, because they feel that things are going in the right or the wrong direction, and explain it in terms of people's opinions. Now, the process on a technical side, we do this a few different ways. One, increasingly, we're talking to people online. We're using large online samples that are balanced to be representative of the country in the way that I described a few moments ago. We find that gives people a chance to take it at their leisure. Of course, people are busy. They're increasingly busy. We find that it's private, so people can just click and answer the way that they would. You don't have that interface between them and an interviewer. So that's one way we do it. And another way we do it, the way we've done it for a long time also, of course, is by phone. We now have to dial today many thousands more phone numbers than pollsters used to 10, 20, 30 years ago. And that's just a result, again, of people being busy, the fact that we're dialing tons of cell phones. People think sometimes we don't, but we do. We do call mostly cell phones when we do a phone poll. It's harder to find people, and we recognize that, but that's the process of putting together this microcosm of the country. And look, pollsters will argue about how to do that. Pollsters will argue about what is that composition and how should it be put together. But that's why I always say, what I try to describe is have the pollster tell you what it is that they were after, what it is that they were trying to study. And every poll is a study unto itself in terms of putting together that sample and also in terms of the kinds of questions that we're asking, Craig.
Yeah, well, I wanted to get into that. What should we understand about how questions are worded and how that can then influence the response?
Well, let me give you a simple example where you've got a subtle phrasing that can make a difference. If I ask you, how concerned are you about a given topic? How concerned are you about, let's say crime or an earthquake? Well, that sounds like it's a matter of degree. How concerned should I be about an earthquake? But if I subtly change the phrasing in that and I say, are you concerned about an earthquake? Then that gives you a place to go yes or no. And the people who are not concerned can more readily find their spot. That's a subtle way, but one that could make a big difference. Here's another example. If I say, how do you think the economy is doing? Is it doing well or is it doing badly? Then you've got a place to go, no matter how you feel. And I can measure degree after that. Well, how well or how badly? If I just were to say to you, do you think the economy is good? Or how good do you think the economy is? Now I haven't given you a range of options. Now I haven't given you that place to go no matter how you feel. And so I think, what the pollster tries to do is use language that's clear, use language that's widely understood, and also allows for a range of opinions and make it very clear that whoever or however you feel, you go through that poll and think, oh yeah, that one's my answer. Oh yeah, that one's mine. And look, very frankly, I talked earlier about how people were busier, and we recognize that, and it's also my job to make the poll engaging. It's also my job to make sure that the poll is thoughtful so that the respondent looks at it and goes, yeah, not only that's my point of view, but also, hey, that's really making me think. That's giving me something to think about. And we find that when we do polls that way, people respond, and that's great.
What you're describing is what a responsible pollster would do, but there are also polls out there, polls called push polls, that are designed to elicit a reaction to end up in a result that's favorable, say, for a candidate or an issue. How can we as news consumers suss out which polls are like that and which ones aren't?
Well, that could be a lot of work for people. You certainly can go and see what the questions were and think for yourself, how would I have answered that? And, sometimes that's the best test. You can look at them and go, wait a second, would somebody who disagreed with me have a place to go here? Would I have a place to go here? But to the point that people are busy, what you should do is follow a reputable news organization. And one of the things that I will try to do for people is that if I report a poll, one that isn't mine, then we've looked at it for you. And we've looked at it and said, okay, these questions were fair and this sample composition looks like the state or the country and was in a reasonable way that the pollster was trying to go after whatever it was they were trying to study. And so hopefully it's sort of incumbent on me to then pass that along to the end user, to the viewer and the consumer, and do that for you effectively, Craig.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. We're talking with Anthony Salvanto. He's CBS News Elections and Surveys Director and the author of Where Did You Get This Number? It's a book about polling. Do we as news consumers sometimes get a mistaken impression because polling is maybe simply asking the wrong question? You noted earlier that we shouldn't pay as much attention to the horse race, and yet that seems to be what so many polls are about.
Well, that's one of the things I'm trying to get past a little bit. And look, the horse race is fun. But the horse race falls into this category, I often say, of the idea that one number can really tell you all you need to know. If you go to the wine store and you look at the price of a bottle of wine, if it's really expensive, does that mean it's going to taste good, better than a cheaper bottle? I know a lot of people who like the cheaper ones, but that's one number that we think tells us a story.
Well, let me put a finer point on it. I saw a recent poll which asked whether voters wanted Democrats or Republicans to win control of the U.S. House in November, except that's not how we vote. We vote for our own district's candidate, so that poll result might give voters a false impression of what may actually happen in November.
Craig, I am really glad you brought that up, because one of the things I think I see a lot out there right now is these national numbers that, while they may accurately reflect that national preference you describe, do not directly speak to the election as it stands. The race for Congress is a seat-by-seat contest. You're correct, obviously. So what folks want to do is pay attention to the seat numbers. Pay attention to the folks who put out an estimate of how many seats are liable to flip, how many are in contention. So there you go directly to what matters, if what you're interested in is who's up and who's down. What we're trying to do in our polling this year is we're concentrating in the battleground House districts, and we're putting out a seat estimate and a seat number. So those national polls that are casting a much wider net, well, that may be great if you've got a sample where people from any place from Minnesota to Idaho to Northern California to Vermont are all saying they want, Republicans or Democrats or whomever they want, but they don't necessarily live in the districts that are going to swing the House. And so that's part of a sample and ultimately a number that might be interesting, but may not tell you exactly what you want to know.
Some election polls focus on registered voters. Others sample likely voters. How much of a difference is there in the findings of polls for those two groups?
Big. And it's another one of those items that folks have got to pay attention to. But then your pollster should very clearly describe what it is that they've done here. Registered voters is obvious. It's people who are on the rolls and registered to vote or say that they are. But likely voters is a different animal. Now you're talking about somebody's intention to do something, not just what they think. And this is a struggle. It might be one of the biggest struggles for pollsters. When we go around and say it all comes down to turnout, that's not a throwaway line for a pollster. We've got to figure out, okay, who says they're going to do something? Well, most folks who say they're going to vote actually do. That's the good news. But then we also know that things get in the way for people. Election day rolls around, or that absentee ballot is sitting on the kitchen table and you haven't had a chance to fill it out yet, and you got to do chores, you got to go to work, etc. Things get in the way. So you might have told the pollster that you meant to vote, but you didn't get to it. Is there any way we can anticipate who might do that? One thing pollsters use is your past vote history, because we know that voting looks like a habit. People who've done it before tend to do it again. So we might incorporate that into our likely voter calculus. We might ask people how enthusiastic they are, because we might imagine that enthusiastic people are more likely to follow through, though that can be a trap because they don't always. Some people vote, like I said, out of that sense of habit. So that can throw you off. All of that goes into that likely voter calculus.
Generally, do we as news consumers need to be savvier about public opinion polls and what they tell us?
It's very tempting to look for shortcuts. Campaigns are long. There's a lot of political discussion going on. And it is work, or can be work, to try to figure out what all these numbers mean. But it's also incumbent on us, and this is really perhaps the reason I wanted to write the book, it's incumbent on us to describe what we do and how people can make sense of it in a fast, easy, convenient way, in a way that sort of illustrates more about the world. One of the things I think is important to do is try to understand the other people who disagree with you, people who might feel differently, be on the other side of the political aisle, whether you're conservative or you're a liberal. It's never been easier to get a caricature of somebody else. But in a poll, hopefully one that's well done, people are describing themselves and why they really think and why they really feel a certain way. And so one of the things that I like to think polls can do and pollsters can do, is explain more about why people really think and what we find. What we find is not just that there's more commonality than you might think, not just that there's more overlap in, say, policy preferences than you might think. There's really a lot of explanation that we can find for why people feel the way they feel, even if you disagree with them. And I think that some of that could make us, perhaps have easier conversations. People in the polls tell us that they feel like conversations are getting harder and harder to have with people who disagree with them. Maybe you can learn something about other folks that can make those conversations a little bit easier.
Anthony Salvanto is CBS News Elections and Surveys Director and the author of Where Did You Get This Number? Anthony, thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Enjoyed it.
I spoke with Anthony Salvanto in 2018. Just ahead, how Houston heat affects the tech we use every day, as Houston Matters continues on News 88.7 and YouTube.
Want to binge All Creatures Great and Small, catch up on Nova, or revisit Ken Burns' documentaries? You can with PBS Passport. With a gift of $5 or more per month to Houston Public Media, you'll get access to PBS Passport that lets you watch your favorite programs anytime you want. Support the programs you love and enjoy them on your own schedule with PBS Passport. Make your gift now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Connected TVs and stay informed.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Central Market, featuring 31 years of celebrating New Mexico's Hatch chilies with fire-roasted flavor and products throughout the store. More at centralmarket.com. Support for Houston Public Media comes from Chariot Energy, offering customers electricity plans that match their energy use schedules and lifestyles. All plans come with 100% renewable energy. Details at chariotenergy.com.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. Houston's summers don't just take a toll on us. They affect all the digital devices we use. As temperatures climb, at best they overheat temporarily. At worst, they can become permanently damaged. To discuss why and how phones overheat, batteries degrade, and even those much-discussed data centers struggle at the height of summer, we are joined now by Zhao, Assistant Professor of Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering at the University of Houston, whose lab studies how heat moves through electronic and thermal systems. And also with us, Dwight Silverman, longtime and recently retired Houston technology writer, who we turn to on occasion to help us make sense of the gadgetry in our lives. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And as we chat, we'd like to know what tech you use that tends to fail you in the heat and how you deal with it, from the phone you carry with you to your car's navigation and beyond. Let us know, or call or text other questions or comments to 713-440-8870. You can email us at talk@houstonmatters.org or comment on our video stream on Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. Dwight, you covered consumer technology for decades. The rise of the smartphone over the last 20 years or so has come in tandem with a rise in global temperatures, so more tech affected by more heat. To your knowledge, has that been a factor in how manufacturers design phones?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I was talking with Bo before we came in about how smartphones, first on Androids and then on iPhones, have added a thing called a vapor chamber. This is a little copper chamber that has a little liquid in it. And when the processor gets too hot, it vaporizes some liquid in it. The vapor cools off and it causes the heat to dissipate better. So those are the kinds of things that they're doing. And also manufacturers are trying to make all of their components more efficient so that they generate less heat even though they're more powerful. But that's a struggle because, physics.
Yeah. How about laptops and other personal tech today?
Laptops, it's the same thing. Processors, they're trying to make processors much more efficient. There's kind of two types of processors now in modern laptops. There's the traditional Intel AMD style, and there's the ARM-based Qualcomm processors. And the Qualcomm processors run cooler and are more efficient. They have deficiencies in some other ways, but that is making big strides and forcing Intel to do the same as well.
Bo, despite manufacturers' efforts, I think we all have experienced pulling out our phones on a hot day and finding they've overheated and won't work until they've cooled down. Why does this happen as often as it does? What's going on inside those phones?
So that's related to how electronics works in general. So to prevent damages and basically self-protection, the phone, our chip, is going to actually stop working at around like 200. Over 200 Fahrenheit, for example. So to prevent that happen, so our phone stops, or firstly throttle when the phone gets about 100 Fahrenheit, and it will automatically shut down at around 120 Fahrenheit.
What part of the phone are we talking about that's heating up?
So the heat is generated from computing from the chip, and then the heat is going to spread out into the phone. So the memory gets hot. Everything basically inside the phone gets hot. And when things get hot, the memory, the electronics associated with the memory start to work not properly. And things start to thermally expand in a different way, so they create internal stress that kind of also damages the phone in a long time. And also our battery is going to age much quicker when it's get hot. So therefore, to save your phone's life, I guess, in the long term, the phone is designed to throttles, therefore, to reduce the power consumption of the phone, to reduce, for example, the refreshing frequency of your screen, to reduce the brightness of your phone screen. That's the first step. And if that doesn't prevent the phone to get even hotter, it's going to automatically shut off.
So, and it sounds like basically, we're always wondering, how do we extend the battery life of these things? Sounds like a big step in that process is keep it out of the heat in the first place.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. Actually, every time 10 degrees Celsius of heat is going to doubling the age rate of the battery. So, yeah, that's going to stay there for the battery.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. We're discussing how Houston's summer heat can affect the technology we all use. We're talking with longtime consumer tech writer Dwight Silverman and Zhao, assistant professor of mechanical and aerospace engineering at the University of Houston. We welcome you to the conversation as well at 713-440-8870 or talk@houstonmatters.org. Dwight, what about tech that is designed to be used outside, like security cameras, smart doorbells, car electronics, certainly? Our cars sit out in the heat all day, and yet we expect that computer on wheels will work flawlessly when we step into it, and not only that, cool us off at the same time. How well is all that tech protected from Houston's heat?
A lot, particularly devices that are designed to work outdoors, like security cameras, are pretty highly efficient. They don't use processors that are that intense, but some of the things they can be doing are compute intensive, such as sending video over the internet and so forth. A lot of them have batteries, but generally they are designed for that. Of course, when you install like a security camera outside, the recommendation is that you put it under an eave instead of out in the sun. Little doorbell cameras are very small and very light, and you can also put some of the computing power inside the home. Cars, most of them have air conditioning in them, the modern ones, and there's insulation inside the car to help prevent it, and there's a lot of ventilation in the areas where there's a lot of electronics.
Yeah, I have had the experience of my phone, I plug it into the car, it's a hot day. If I try and leave it on the charging pad inside the car, it will overheat quickly. But what I've been doing is I put it on the passenger seat, and then, this may sound ridiculous, but I've got one of those seats that like it cools.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So I turn that on. It's almost like its own little mini air conditioner just for the phone.
Yeah.
Is that a wise move? It seems not a very efficient use of this technology.
Well, I can guarantee you that the phone definitely feels much better if you do that.
Yeah. It's happier than I am in the
yes,
car.
Exactly.
And there are phone mounts you can buy that fit onto the louvers of the air conditioner. And that actually works really well. I reviewed a free app back in May that is a dash cam that causes your phone to become a dash cam. But it has to be set up on top of the dash or mounted so it can see outside the windshield. But at the same time, it is doing video, internet, GPS. You probably have it charging because you're doing GPS, and a lot of computing as it records what it is and where you are. And in the documentation for this free app, which again is really good, it warns you your phone may shut down because it's sitting in the sun in the dash, particularly in Houston in the summer.
Let's take a call. We have Julie on the line in the Galleria neighborhood. Julie, what's your question or comment?
I kind of wonder if that helps, or wonders why my phone goes bad. I have an Iris Easy Flip CC network. That's all I know about it. I notice the battery feels hot at times. It seems to lose power quite a bit, but at least it charges up quite fast. Is that normal? I try to keep it out of the sun.
It's a good question. So it sounds like in her case, maybe this is indoors and the battery is getting hot. Is it in those moments, should she be unplugging that?
I would say if you feel like your electronics is getting hot from all kinds of reasons, it's a good idea to stop doing what you're doing and make sure the electronics is within the cooler or design temperature range. That's always a good measure to do.
Yeah.
If she's using a flip phone,
yeah,
those are not necessarily designed to do all the fancy things that a smartphone can do, but also it's possible manufacturers aren't paying that much attention to heat dissipation because it's only a flip phone.
Dwight, we also have a text from a listener who says, hiding a laptop in the car trunk while shopping, how damaging is it?
So long as the laptop isn't on, it could probably handle it. If it's really hot and it's outside, I would bring it inside and let it sit in the cool air-conditioned comfort before you turn it on a little bit.
What do you think about the idea? A lot of people have laptop bags. What about keeping one of those ice packs in one of the pockets of those bags as a means to keep the equipment cool if you know you're going to keep it in the trunk of your car for hours at a time out in the heat?
That will help. But of course, if it's really hot, that bag will lose its freeze pretty fast. The one thing you need to be careful about with any kind of very cold thing designed to help it is that you don't allow for condensation. You get condensation inside the case, either of a phone or a laptop, and that's trouble.
That also raises another issue, which is Houston summers are not just about heat, they're about humidity. Bo, does humidity make heat-related problems worse for electronics?
Well, in general, our phone does not rely on humidity to cool itself because there's no liquid inside the phone unless you make your phone surface, I guess, wet by spraying some water on it. Presumably it's waterproof. And then you're going to trigger a so-called evaporative cooling. That's also one little trick you can play on a hot day. But without that, the humidity actually does not matter that much for the phone cooling. It's basically how hot the air is and whether you're putting your phone under the sun.
Dwight, go ahead.
And never put your phone in the refrigerator to cool it off.
Oh no,
it will instantly things will condense on it. Water will condense on it. That can be bad.
Some devices, as we've talked about, will essentially shut themselves off if there's a danger of overheating. When that happens, is that just a temporary thing and it cools off and it comes back on and everything's fine, or could we actually have seen some damage done to it in the moment?
If it's extreme, it's possible there could be damage that might show up later. But as Bo mentioned, they're pretty well designed to throttle back as things get warmer. Things start moving slower until eventually it does shut off. I think everybody who's got a phone has had the experience of taking video out in the hot summer sun, and suddenly it won't take video anymore. Yeah. That's one of the steps in shutting things down.
Right.
Bo, what other one tip would you offer for anybody when it comes to the personal tech that, for whatever reason, they got to have with them outside in the summer heat, how to keep it cool?
I would say the most effective trick is to avoid the direct sunlight. We can run the number. Our phone actually has an internal heat generating power about like 2 to 4 watts in the normal use, but direct sunlight is going to bump that number 2 to 3 times. So you're artificially letting the phone consuming like 3 times of the power it normally consumes.
So just like us, get it into the shade.
Exactly. Yeah. Get in the shade, yes.
Bo Zhao is Assistant Professor of Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering at the University of Houston. Dwight Silverman's a longtime now retired Houston technology writer. Thank you both very much.
Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Craig.
And still to come, suggestions for offbeat, overlooked, or unexpected spots worth exploring across and just outside of Greater Houston. Stay with us as Houston Matters continues on News 88.7 and YouTube.
Hello, I'm Bob Maniger from the Ed and Jean Matthews Foundation. PBS has been a part of our family for generations, and we are proud supporters of Houston Public Media. From PBS Kids programming that supports children and their parents to PBS NewsHour that we rely on to learn about what's going on in our world. Your support keeps PBS available for our community across Greater Houston. Give now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Houston Public Media comes from Alley Theater, now playing The Girl on the Train. Based on the best-selling novel, this psychological thriller continues through August 30th. Tickets at alleytheater.org.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, a workers' compensation provider committed to helping Texas communities and emphasizing safety. More at texasmutual.com/TexansGetIt.
Ask an interlooper about exploring Houston, and they're likely to mention some interlooper mainstays like the museum and theater districts, Memorial Park, Discovery Green, hike and bike trails, and their favorite restaurants. Get outside the loop and the suggestions change. If they're from Galveston, they'll say, head over to the Strand and, oh, this is my favorite restaurant. Or go to the beach and check out this restaurant. In the Woodlands, there are concerts at Cynthia Woods Mitchell Pavilion. And don't forget to check out my favorite restaurant. You get the idea. See, the thing is, one person's hidden gems are another's regular haunts, and vice versa. So it may be a bit of a fool's errand to come up with a bunch of places to explore in, around, and just outside of Greater Houston that you may or may not already know about, but we're going to try anyway with the help of a pair of freelance travel writers, Saba, Khonsari, and my Pham. Good morning to you both.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Saba, Houstonians tend to stay inside in air conditioning a lot, especially at the height of summer, but we recently talked on this show about air conditioning activities around town. So let's begin this discussion with getting out into nature in and around Greater Houston. Set aside the major parks. What are some lesser-known parks or natural areas you think are worth checking out?
Well, I'm a huge fan of the state park system here in Texas, and I'm ashamed to tell you I just started in the pandemic, like a lot of other people, discovering it. But no matter where you are in Houston, we have a state park. So if you head north, we have Huntsville. East is Lake Livingston, which has a great lake for swimming. South, of course, is Galveston Island State Park. Southwest is Brazos Bend with a great observation that you can do for the stars. And northwest is Stephen F. Austin. And then right in the middle, kind of on the east, is Sheldon Lake State Park, which is great.
And then there are going to be those of us who would like to get out into nature, but we don't want to drive all day or spend all day in one spot. Can you offer any suggestions of places to check out some wildlife, do a little bird watching, without spending the whole day at a major nature preserve?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, I would definitely start with Sheldon Lake State Park. It's day use, it's free, and it has this 82-foot tower. Unfortunately, the elevator is currently still under unavailable.
So a lot of stairs or a climb?
It's a climb, but you get 365-degree views of Houston.
Okay.
It's amazing.
Are there spots that you think are more family-friendly than others?
No, I think all the spots are family-friendly. The interpretive guides are amazing. They run incredible education programs everywhere. It's a great little field trip for adults and kids alike. And
any particular resources for identifying parks or other outdoor recreation spots that might be a fit for you and your family?
Yeah, I mean, I got rid of my socials, but social media is, of course, a great place to start. I'm a huge fan of subscribing to newsletters. The state parks does a newsletter. All the parks and museums do newsletters. They're great.
Congratulations for unplugging from the socials. Well done.
I'll keep you posted.
That's very hard to
do. Another way to approach this question is to approach it regionally. Let's face it. Most Houstonians know a lot about whatever part of Houston they're from, and less so about other parts.
I'm from Sugar Land. That's
okay. So
totally
there you go.
True of me.
Yeah.
Actually, so one thing coming from the suburbs, what's interesting is if you actually do staycation in the city, it opens your eyes to like all these other possibilities. So for instance, I wrote some reviews for Condé Nast where I actually stayed at the hotels and kind of explored the area. So in Montrose, I'm not sure if you know, but literally across the street from the Menil Collection is a hotel called the Hotel St. Augustine. And it's just hidden within the community. There's no big sign or anything. People locally bike there and hang out in the lounge. There's a beautiful restaurant, but you can literally just walk across the street and the Menil Collection is there, okay? Likewise, if you go and you stay at the Post Oak Hotel, which is right inside the Loop, you're right there near Uptown Park. You have, Memorial Park right there. You have the Galleria right there. There's so many things that you can do. But for me, I'm always looking for the food. So, for instance, Katy right now is exploding with all types of Asian cuisine. But something a lot of people may not know is that they are a hotspot for Venezuelan cuisine. It has a nickname called, sorry about the fun. They have a nickname called Katyzuela. So you can go there and get arepas. There's a really beautiful, outside food truck park that specializes in all Venezuelan cuisine. There's like wonderful pastries. And my personal favorite, there is a Korean spot, one of the largest, actually I think it's the largest in Houston. It's a place where you can go and spend all day and soak in a tub and eat Korean food and watch TV. I mean, it's really amazing.
All right, so that's out west. How about up north?
Up north, I would go to Spring. There's Old Town Spring, and I don't know if people know this, but one of, or actually the James Beard Award-winning chef 2025 for Texas is up there in Spring. He has a restaurant called Belly of the Beast. It's in a strip mall, but Old Town Spring is really fun to walk around if you've never been there. It just has like this old town feel. There's like ice cream, there's, wine bars, and then you can, go and have a James Beard Award-winning meal. And it's also, I believe it's a Michelin star restaurant as well.
When we talk about heading south, people tend to think about Galveston, going to the beach there, or the boardwalk in Kemah. Any other spots southeast that we should check out?
Southeast in Webster, there is Webster is that way. Sorry, in Seabrook. Would that be south? Okay.
Sure.
So Seabrook, there is a wonderful restaurant called Pier 6, and it has literally transformed the whole area. They created this whole yacht dock area, and there's fireworks there during, like 4th of July. You can go hang out. They have like these beautiful kind of, those eggshell swings. I mean, it's just gorgeous, and it's also the place where you can get, oysters that are just coming off of the Gulf.
What's your favorite best first step for any Houstonian contemplating a day trip somewhere on a random Saturday? How should they settle on where to go?
I mean, my big thing, especially in Houston, is like don't be afraid to sweat a little bit, and also maybe wake up a little bit earlier and try out like kayaking at dawn or stay up later and do a night hike. There's a lot of opportunities to see the city in different ways.
I love going to Rice University. I think it's closed right now, but they have that James Turrell exhibit, which you can go at dawn or you can go in the evening, and it's completely free. And there's this open space where you can like view the moon or the sun, and it's completely amazing.
Freelance Houston area travel writers Saba, Khonsari, and Pham, thank you both very much for talking with us.
Thanks so much.
Suggestions. And that'll do it for today's show. The Houston Matters team includes Michael Haggerty, Joshua Zinn, Brenda Valdivia, and Mincho Jacob. Tom Carter was our technical director today. On tomorrow's show, the latest developments in politics and our regular Wednesday political roundup. We'll also preview a special screening at River Oaks Theater of the classic film Casablanca, with the man presenting it, longtime Houston area film critic Joe Layden. Plus, we learn about Noble Motion Dance's latest production, the world premiere of a blend of original music, dance, and electronics called Chant. I'm Craig Cohen. Join us tomorrow for those and other Houston Matters.